Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm going to be looking at a set of passive pickups from EMG. Stay tuned. So anybody who plays guitar, especially if they play metal genres, are aware of EMG, and they usually associate the brand with active pickups. In fact, until, Seymour Duncan and Fishman kind of came out with their own active pickups, EMG was pretty much like the name of the game when it came to battery-powered tone. Now, I've played on every iteration of EMG pickup from the OG 81 all the way through the brand new James Hetfield set, the 57, the 66, the 85, the 60, all the variations of the EMG active line. And about a month ago, I was looking for something a little bit different, and I really wanted to go passive. So I was scouring around, looking at Seymour Duncan, looking at DiMarzio, looking at some more boutique brands, and I kind of stumbled across the fact that, EMG does make passive pickups. Now, the last time I had a passive EMG pickup was an EMG HZ that came stock in an old LTD, and I gotta say, I wasn't too impressed with that particular line of pickups. But from what I understand, EMG has been working on their passive pickup game quite a bit in the last, 10 or so years. And they've come out with a couple signature lines of passive pickups that look like active pickups. And apparently they kind of have a more active sound kind of baked into their passive build. So when I stumbled across the Revelation set that EMG has, I was kind of curious about the Alnico 2 magnet that they use in the pickup itself. I personally have never used an Alnico 2 magnet pickup for anything. From what I understand, the Alnico 2 magnets are supposed to be more of the vintage low output kind of, soft squishy sound that you would get, back in the day. Whereas now we're more likely to see the ceramic or the Alnico 5 be the high output, metal and or rock and roll style pickups. So EMG developed this pickup with Prashant Aswani, who, if you haven't heard of, is kind of a virtuosic, kind of proggy metal rock songwriter, guitar player. If you look up some of his stuff, you'll definitely recognize the kind of vibe and style that he is going for. And, when I heard some of those textures, those tones, I was like, maybe that's kind of what I'm looking for. Something that's not super high output, something that's a little bit more textural and a little bit more well-rounded than just your standard, Duncan JB or something, in that upper kind of bitey range. So with that, these pickups only come in at right about 14 kiloohms resistance. And interestingly enough, both pickups are basically the same DC output, and both pickups are kind of voiced very similarly. I find that the neck pickup is dark enough to be, that neck kind of more fat tone, and I find that the bridge pickup is just a little bit more present and forward to give you a little bit more of that, bridge pickup sound. But unlike other matched passive sets, you don't have this high output monster in the bridge and this kind of low, medium output vintage thing in the neck. Both pickups here are kind of meant to be a little bit more modern, mid-forward sounding. But that doesn't mean that everything about these pickups is great. In fact, I made it a point to spend at least a month playing on these pickups to see if I could discern anything that was good and or bad before I decided that these would either be the permanent ones in this guitar or if I was going to move on to something else. Okay, so the setup for today is I have this guitar. I'm actually going to run it into my Black Star St. James 606, and we're going from this into a V30 loaded Mesa cab. I got a SM57 down there on one of the speakers, and you're just going to hear the raw audio, and we'll kind of see what these kind of sound like. So first up, let's listen to some clean tones. I know not everybody cares about clean tones, but with a pickup set like this, I think the clean tones are important because I think that's kind of what they do better than anything else, but we'll get into that. So right away, you can tell that the clean tones on this thing are pretty kind of plinky, kind of in your face, very full sounding. A stark contrast to much of the like EMG 81, 85 kind of stuff that I'm used to. The neck pickup on this isn't too far off from a EMG 85 from what I remember, but that bridge pickup is a much better sounding clean tone than most EMGs that I play through that are supposed to be bridge pickups. Now, one of the cool things about this being a passive set, very responsive to dynamic control on the volume and tone pots. And if you didn't know, these come with the EMG solderless setup. And they're 500K pots that use, the quick connect stuff. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm not super big a fan of that with passive pickups because I do like the idea of being able to kind of change some stuff around. It definitely makes certain things a little bit harder to kind of suss out and work on. And we'll get into that a little bit later when it comes to the coil split option on this. But for now, let's just kind of play around a little bit more with the clean tone, and I'll kind of roll back the volume so you can kind of hear what this does with a little bit of volume control. Yeah, so the volume control on this is pretty well done. I think most of the EMG quick connect potentiometers are built pretty well to have a really nice taper. And, the tone control is similar. I mean, it's a tone control. I don't typically use tone controls that often, but they're there. So let's move on to some crunchy tones. I think that's where you can really get some of the more textural stuff about these pickups going. So I'm going to move on to channel 2 on the Black Star, and we're going to go with the more vintage British, I guess, sounding voicing that they have on this amp. So with a little bit of gain, I think it's really nice, kind of even tone throughout, all positions. What I really like when you kind of dial up the gain is this middle position. I think this middle position almost has I know it's not wired to be in parallel, but it has that feel and that kind of top end kind of bite. I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like a Telecaster where you just get that sound, especially when you really dig in with a pick. Where the bridge pickup's a little more nasally. That middle position mixing with the neck pickup. That mid-range is evened out, and there's a little bit more of that bite. When you go to the neck, it is just a super chimey, very lead, nice tone. I'm not much of a lead player. I do like playing some blues, some jazz stuff, but I think for a neck pickup, it's as good as most other passive neck pickups you can get. It doesn't really have that PAF sound, and I'm really surprised, given what I've been told about the Alnico tube magnet, that there's such a tightness in the low end response on some of these settings. especially on the bridge pickup. So let's move on to some high gain tones and see if these can really handle more of like a metal kind of in your face thing. So I'm only on the bridge pickup, but I do think that the Alnico 2 magnet and kind of how these are voiced, I am missing a little bit, you know, some people call it fizz. I call it more like fidelity. I think I'm missing a little bit more of that like top end fidelity, even though I rolled up the treble a little bit on this amp. Mids are just scooched back a little bit here. I even pulled the bass down just a tad. If I give it a little bit more gain, sorry, that was volume. I do feel like these just have a little bit overall darker sound just in general. For high gain stuff, I don't typically go to the neck pickup or the middle position pickup. I really do keep it, you know, strictly for the bridge, you know, the chuggy chugs. So one thing I like to do with this amp, because this setting on this amp is very similar, in my opinion, to more of like a Mesa Boogie, like a rectifier style. It does have a little bit more of a beefy low end. I'm going to throw a boost in front of this. So I'm just going to go with the Boss SD1. We'll see how these pickups do with a boost in front of this amp. So a boost or an overdrive is kind of the great equalizer when it comes to, you know, shaping the tone going into an amp. Automatically tightens everything up. The one thing I'm still missing in this set of pickups is it's kind of hard to squeeze out pinch harmonics. Going through high gain, the resonant frequency, or however these are built, doesn't seem to really cater to those super sustained overtones like some other pickups that I have in my collection. That, you know, that harmonic kind of breaks up a little bit quicker. If I bend it and I give it a little bit more, you know, a little sauce, it'll hold, but how I'm hearing it through the speaker, it's not nearly as present as some other pickups that I use. All right, so another thing I want to talk about with these pickups are they are passive and they do come with 4 conducting wires. And the north and south leads on these are typically wrapped up and tucked away on the pickup when you get them. There's nothing at all in the manual about coil splitting these pickups, even though by all accounts they can be split. I have seen a couple videos where people have wired them with coil splits and or to a 5-way switch to get some parallel switching, and they sounded pretty good. But I'm going to tell you right now that straight coil splitting these, just to, I just have a little 2-way toggle switch here. I'm not a big fan of the coil split sound, and I don't know if these pickups just were developed with never needing to coil split them, or if the Alnico 2 magnets are just a little bit on the weak side, and so coil splitting this particular set is something that just doesn't produce a great result. But I'll let you hear what the coil split sounds like now. So the coil split, it doesn't sound bad. Like, in fact, I actually like the way it sounds in the middle position. You get that real, almost like it was non-split, you get that more plinky kind of Telecaster-like tone out of it. The output drop is just so immense on this particular set of pickups, like more than any other set I've had. And I've had plenty of low output Alnico 5 ceramic pickups, and I never experienced quite the volume drop I get with these pickups. And the other thing is there's a real pronounced just thinness to the coil split that other coil splits seem to retain a little bit of bottom end characteristic. And that's where I think the Alnico 2 magnet might be coming into play here, that you just don't have that strong magnet to really fill out that, that field around the, the inner coils that are being split. So they're not bad. In fact, I really do, like I said, like this middle sound. It's just way quieter than this. And that drop in output's just a little bit too jarring for my tastes. So for a bit of fun, and it's not going to be a very good comparison because this guitar is set up for a different tuning, but I decided to pull out my Charvel with the EMG 57 and 66, and I'm just going to play a couple rounds of clean and high gain here to kind of see if there's any real big noticeable difference between what's coming out of a passive EMG versus an active EMG. Alright, so listening to the EMG 57 and the EMG Revelation set, at least the bridge pickup, the clean tones are like not even comparable. Like the clean tone on this EMG 57 is so just in your face. And I think part of that is that EMG always meant this to be kind of like a high octane PAF. So you get a lot of that high end kind of chimey character on the clean tones. Now, when you go into the gain stuff, I don't know. The more I'm listening to the Revelation set, the more I'm really liking the sound of that that high gain, especially for the chuggy kind of low rhythmic stuff. Again, it kind of lacks some of that harmonic content in the really upper range. But overall, I think with that Alnico 2 magnet, the tone is so subdued that the articulation that you're getting on some of those palm mutes is really nice and a lot more pleasant to the ear than even, something like this. I think this needs to be dialed in a little bit more with this particular amp to get it to sound like how I would want it. But regardless, I think EMG, putting out more passive stuff is cool. I'm not certain it is their forte. I don't know if they do it any better than anybody else. I do think that for the Revelation set, the ability to split the coils is somewhat underwhelming. And based off of the marketing and everything I see on the website, there's really no indication that you're supposed to really do that with these pickups or that they're intending you to use that as like a feature. But at the same time, it's there. It's just not that great. If I were going to have any major takeaway from these particular pickups, it would be that if you're looking for something that really has a very well-balanced kind of in-the-middle sound that you can kind of pull kind of the top end of like the rock aggression and a little bit of that like meaty kind of metalcore chunk, you could use these pickups. I think if you tried to get any more aggressive with it, or if you tried to like put these in like a baritone guitar or something like that, you might be missing some of that high fidelity top end that you get from other pickup types. But overall, it's a good set of pickups. Will I keep them in this guitar? I don't think so. I might put them somewhere else. I might get rid of them. I don't know. They are unique. So with that, I'll leave you guys to comment. Give me your thoughts. Maybe you have some insight into these pickups and kind of what they're meant for more than I do. So let me know. Thanks.